Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. September 30, 2025. Today I'm going to show you something that destroys your body from the inside out. Something that picks your body apart piece by piece. It happens to every single person on the planet, no matter how healthy you are, how strong, or how disciplined. No one has ever stopped it. No one has ever delayed it. Not in the history of the world. Three things, three catastrophic events. They creep in around the same time, and together they explain why we all fall apart as we age. Why even the best, the fittest, the healthiest people in the world fall victim to them. I'm going to walk you through these catastrophic events step by step. I won't tell you what they are yet, but by the end of this video, you'll see exactly how they line up perfectly and why this is one battle you must fight if you want to stay powerful, functional, and truly youthful. So let's start with the first event. Back in 2019, scientists ran one of the most important aging studies ever done, and almost no one is talking about this. They measured almost 3,000 proteins in the blood and over 4,000 people, ranging from the age of like 18 to 95. Why proteins? Because proteins aren't just numbers on a chart. They're the workhorses of your body. They're what your genes actually build. They tell you how healthy your cells, your organs, and your system actually are. And here's the most interesting part. Using these proteins, the scientists could predict your age almost perfectly. Even if they didn't know you or anything about you, they could guess if you're 40, 37, 49, 80, etc. with accuracy that blew away your so-called biological age test out the water. But what makes the study so groundbreaking isn't just the accuracy, it's what they found. Every single human ages in three waves, or what they call crests. These crests happen about the age of 34, 60, and 78. At each of these ages, your body goes through a massive shift, like a hidden wave crashing over your system, pushing you further down the road of aging. Let me clear something up. There's another study from 2024 that claims people age faster at 2 points, at 45 and 60. Don't get confused. That study looked at much smaller sample size and it only scratched the surface. The 2019 study I'm talking about is still the gold standard, but nobody knows about it. It puts the 2024 study to shame. So let me break this down. I'm going to show you what happens in each of these three critical crests, phases, and why they matter for your health and longevity. On the screen right here, you will see three major waves found in the study. Okay, the first wave happens around the age of 34. This is the first warning. The proteins that act like the glue, the framework of your body, the stuff that keeps your tissues firm, joints strong, and skin tight, start to weaken. This is called the extracellular matrix. Now let's go to the second phase, which happens around the age of 60. And it's a much bigger one. The proteins in your blood show clear shifts in your hormones, your metabolism, and your circulation. Translation? Your internal wiring, the signals that tell your body how to burn energy, balance sugar, move nutrients, and regulate blood all start to drift. This is why diseases like diabetes, heart issues, and other chronic conditions start showing up more often after 60. It's not random. It's not your genes. It's because your body's communication system is changing. Now here's the third wave the study found. It happens around the age of 78. This is the final wave, or crest, the last biological phase your body goes through. After this, there are no more resets, no more hidden gears to kick in. The proteins in your blood show complete system deterioration. Your circulation is struggling. Your tissue repair signals are breaking down, and your bones and immune system lose their edge. The study makes it clear the 78-year-old mark is the last major phase of life. After that, you're in the final stretch. As I mentioned at the beginning, there are three things that happen. Now I'm going to speak about the second thing, which you heard many times when people speak about. It's called the loss of motor units. Before I continue, let me clarify something. Just because I'm calling it the second event here does not mean it happens after the proteome changes. The loss of motor units actually starts before the first proteome wave that scientists found at the age of 34. By your mid-20s to around 30 years old, you're already losing your fastest motor units, the explosive ones, the type 2X fibers. This loss is universal. It doesn't matter if you're an athlete, a bodybuilder, or someone with perfect biomarkers. Everyone starts losing them around this time. So remember this, the motor unit decline is already underway quietly. before the proteome even shows its first big wave at the age of 34. Now, check this out. I'm going to superimpose the two timelines, the proteome waves and the motor unit decline, on one chart. Watch how they line up. I'm going to walk you step by step from birth to the end to this combined shade timeline so you can see exactly how it unfolds in real life. And after that, I'll reveal the third event, the one that locks the outcome in for everyone. So let me start with the white shaded area. You see it on the screen right here. We all start life with 100% of our motor units. That means every single nerve to muscle connection we were given at birth is still intact. From birth all the way up to 25, 30 years old, no matter who you are, you only get stronger, faster, and healthier. But right here at this edge, the late 20s into 30s, the first cracks appear. The fastest, most explosive motor units, the type 2X, begin to disappear. It doesn't matter how healthy you are, as I said. This is nature's timer starting to tick. Now let's transition into the yellow zone, exactly where the first cracks of the type 2X motor units begin to get pruned. Pruned means cut off, destroyed, whatever you want to call it. You might not feel it yet, but something is changing under the hood. And right after your explosive power slowly begun to disappear, scientists found the first big proteome wave in our blood proteins. Deterioration of this extracellular matrix. What does that mean? Well, think of your body like a house. The extracellular matrix is basically the concrete, the beams, the glue that holds all the bricks together. It's not the muscle itself, but it's what keeps the muscle, the skin, the joints, everything in place and working smoothly. Now, around the age of 34, those support beams start to weaken. They don't vanish overnight, ladies and gentlemen, but tiny cracks appear in the foundation. So here's the connection. Just as your body is quietly losing those fast explosive motor units around the white, the end of the white, and into the yellow, your internal scaffolding, the stuff that keeps tissues firm and strong, starts breaking down. This is the first biological signals of aging. You don't see it yet, you don't feel it yet, but the slow leak has begun. Now let's move along into the violet zone, which is your 40s and 50s, from 40 to 60 years old. This stage is what I call the incubation period. Here's what that means. The motor unit loss that began back in the white zone is now spreading quietly under the surface. You don't see it full blown yet, but this is when the cracks widen, they get bigger. You start feeling the first signs like recovery takes longer, you get those aches and pains, a little stiffness in the morning. Then on the medical side, this is when silent diseases start incubating. High blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, insulin resistance. They may not show obvious symptoms yet, but the process are running in the background. And let me really drill this in. When you start losing those fast twitch motor units in this stage, it's not just about losing speed. These motor units drive your entire system. They regulate metabolism. They keep your blood vessels young. They trigger hormones and brain chemicals that keep you sharp. When you lose them, your whole body slows down. And your body notices this. Your epigenetics actually respond to this slowdown. People always say, your genes respond to your lifestyle. You're right. Well, when you move slower, because your fast motor units are disappearing, your body literally starts flipping genetic switches that accelerates aging. It thinks, well, we're slowing down. It's time to age. So from the outside, people might say, oh, it's not a big deal. You're just getting older. This is normal. But what's really happening is that your motor unit network is eroding underneath you. That's the hidden cause of this incubation period, and it sets you up for what comes up next. Okay, now let's get into the pink zone, where you can see it's from 60 to 80 years old. This is a very, very crucial area in the aging process. Around the age of 60, scientists discovered the second major proteome wave in our blood. What exactly changed here? Hormones, metabolism, and blood circulation. Those are the signals that regulate sugar, energy use, and blood flow start going off track. That's why high blood pressure, diabetes, and heart disease become so common after the age of 60. It's not just bad luck, the system itself is changing. And at the exact same time, motor unit loss begins to accelerate sharply. Before 60, the decline was slower, but now the drop is steep. By the age of 70, the average person has already lost about 40% of their motor units. That means 40% of your ability to move with power, speed, and coordination is poof, gone. And by 75, the motor unit loss increases even more to 50%. Now let's stop right here for a second because this is one of the most important parts in this entire video. Around the age of 75, everyone appears to hit what's called the falling off a cliff phenomenon. Let me explain, because people may hear this and think that it means that you suddenly drop dead at 75. That's not what it means. Falling off the cliff is when your health and function suddenly, boom, collapse. You go from a steady decline to a sharp, sudden loss of capacity.
The message is very clear. This is a figure that shows on the left, it shows women, and on the right, it shows men. The bottom two figures show physical activity level over time. So age is always shown on the x-axis. And the upper figure shows fat-free mass in kilograms on the y-axis versus, again, age on the x-axis. So fat-free mass, of course, is a very good proxy for lean mass or muscle mass. And you can see that these have data collected all the way from when people are teenagers up until the end of life. And again, you don't really have to be a statistician to see the remarkable trends here. You'll realize two things. The first is that we have a steady increase in muscle mass and lean mass, both for men and women, that occurs from birth right up until about the age of 25. And then you have a relatively minor decline in lean mass from 25 to 75. But then what happens at 75, Nick?
Yeah, it's off a cliff.
It literally falls off a cliff. That from the ages of 25 to 75, physical activity level is even more consistent and conserved than lean mass in both men and women. And yet what happens at the age of 75 for both men and women?
Same thing.
Yeah, it just falls off a cliff.
The best athletes in the world experience this. Even master sprinters who kept their speed into their 60s and early 70s, when they hit 75, their performance doesn't just slip, it falls off the cliff. What does that look like in everyday life? One year you're walking fine, the next one you need a cane. One year you're living independently, and the next you need full-time care. One year you are fine, and the next you got a heart attack, etc. That's the cliff. It's not death, but it's downhill slide where the end becomes inevitable.
We don't study any animal, including primates, in a setting where sarcopenia and osteoporosis are problematic. And yet I would ask anyone to consider the entire population that they know over the age of 75.
Yeah.
And I would ask you, take every person that is alive today that's over 75 and tell me how many of them are not suffering at least some consequence of one or both of those phenomenon. And if somebody did that analysis, I would be shocked if we didn't find at least 80% of people over the age of 75 are experiencing this. And if you look at the activity, just monitor the activity level of people over the, once they hit 75, they fall off a cliff. So muscle mass dramatically plummets, activity levels dramatically plummet. It's difficult to say which one's feeding which.
Yeah.
But there's no question that something is happening to our species at about the age of 75 that is a structural problem.
It all ties back to the exact spot on the graph the moment you lost 50% of your motor units. That's the cutoff where your shield is broken. That's the universal point of collapse. Look at the screen right here. Look at the graph. And then just a couple of years later, look at the graph again. Around the age of 78, the third and final proteomic wave crashes down. This one targets the most fragile parts of your system. For example, proteins that guide how your nerves and motor units connect to your muscles start breaking down. That's your axon guidance failing. The next one is the signaling that keeps your tissues repairing and your blood vessels healthy start to go off course. That's your EPH efferent signaling dropping. And the last problem is the repair proteins that once kept your bones strong and your immune system powerful. The BMP proteins begin to fail. So right here, these three things happen all at once. Look at the red line going down vertically. You lost half of your motor units, you fall off the cliff in health and function, and you can see the third and final proteome wave confirms the system-wide collapse. You see the red line going across all three. This is not a coincidence. That's biology telling us the same story three different ways. And let me emphasize that so far, no one in human history, no one has beaten it. Now let's jump into the light blue zone from 80 to 100. The game completely changes. This is survival mode. In this phase, motor units are disappearing at an alarming rate. If you didn't make it to 90, you probably got only about 10% of your motor units left, and most people never make it that far. And here's the shocking truth. Studies show that most people in this zone don't actually die from one disease like cancer or organ failure. They die from frailty. Frailty is just science's polite word for weakness. The body literally runs out of power. And what causes frailty? Well, one of the major reasons is motor unit loss. You can look perfectly healthy on paper, even have perfect biomarkers, but without motor units, your foundation is gone. You can't stand. You can't catch yourself. You can't breathe strong enough. The lights go out. Neuromuscular studies confirm this. Once past 80, your muscles don't just lose size, they lose speed and responsiveness. Look at the study on the screen. Movements get slower and your fatigability skyrockets. In plain terms, every effort drains you faster and you can't recover the same way. That's why falls, weakness, and collapse are so common during this age period. And if that wasn't enough, the proteome study shows the last great biological wave hits right at 78 years old, lines up perfectly with the loss of neuromuscular connection that reduces muscle contraction speed and the frailty that follows in our 80s. This light blue zone also sets the stage for who will cross the 100-year mark. Researchers place centenarians into three different groups. Number one, survivors, those who had disease early but kept going. Then you have the delayers. These are the centenarians that push disease off until later. And then finally you have the escapists, those who reached 100 with no major disease. But the one thing is, these labels don't matter much here, because whether you survive, delay, or escape, the motor units don't care. By 80 to 100, their collapse writes the real story of your body. Now let's get into the final shade, the gray. Ladies and gentlemen, before we even get into the survivors, the escapers, and the layer centenarians, let me clarify something. Fast type 2X motor units are lost before anything else. We now know that many people have lost their fast type 2X muscle fibers by the age of 20. That is the catalyst. That's the trigger. This is the starting point of the entire decline. Now let's talk about the escapists, the delayers, and the survivors. What did they really escape, delay, and survive? Motor units don't care that you made it to 100. They're going to take you down anyway. This is the last hurrah. Look at the graph. By the time you reach 90, you're down to about 10% of your original motor units. After that, it's a free fall. Millions have made it to 100, and more records are being broken today. But as of 2016, only about 2,100 made it to 110, and only about 1,100 made it to 111, and only about 6 reached 117, and 1 made it to 2022, allegedly. And here's what this means. Once your motor units are gone, you can't move, you can't stand, you can't walk, and you can't even keep your balance. And your diaphragm, that's a muscle also. Without motor units to power it, you can't breathe. That's why people don't just fall asleep and die peacefully. Their system collapses because movement itself, the core of life, is gone. And don't let anyone fool you. Nothing in existence can stop this. No stem cells, no reprogramming, no miracle pills. Once a motor unit is gone, it's gone forever. You can slow the loss, maybe even delay it, but you cannot replace it. That's why millions of people make it to 100, but only about 2,100 in the history of the world have reached 110. Genetics didn't save them. Supplements didn't save them. Motor units are the wall. That's the real limit of human life. And remember, it all started way earlier. The very first cracks appeared in your 20s when you lost your pure type 2X motor units. Then at 60, the losses accelerated, and at 75, the cliff hit. Half of your motor units gone. From there, it was all downhill. Let me close with this. What I just showed you are not opinions. They're facts that unfold in every single human life. And the problem is you don't notice it until it's too late. So if you're 45, 55, 58, 59, and you're bragging online about conquering aging, let me stop you right there. You haven't even experienced it yet, or even the second proteome wave. You haven't hit the cliff. You haven't lost half of your motor units. You haven't lived to the final proteome wave. You have no standing, zero. Because here's the truth. Once you cross into your 80s, the cliff shows its face. Almost no one is on just one medication after 80. The studies prove it. By the time you reach this age, it's normal to be on 5, 10, even 15 prescriptions at once. That's what frailty looks like. That's what the cliff does to you. It doesn't matter if your biomarkers look perfect, your foundation is gone. Motor units don't care. Here's more proof. Look at the data. Before 75, some people still brag about being on medication free, but after 75, almost everyone is on prescription drugs. By 85, over 90% are, and nearly all of them juggle multiple drugs just to function. And let me emphasize that the ones that do not take medication is because they simply cannot afford it. So don't be fooled. This is the cliff in real time, not theory, not genetics, but reality. That's what I'm fighting. That's the real war, not Botox, not hair dye, not miracle supplements, not lab tests. I'm fighting the one thing that no one has ever beaten. And I don't know if I'll succeed, but I'm showing you what nobody else is willing to face. So stop getting hypnotized by the hype. The real test comes after 75. And when you're still standing strong there, moving like a panther with no diseases, then you can talk. Until then, this is the only fight that matters. Have a great day. See you soon in my next video.